Hi guys, Chris here with Super Savvy Travelers. Hey, again, we're so excited because we have Nick Metta with us from Studio Legale Metta. And today we're going to touch on the Codice Fiscale situation because I know you guys are a little bit concerned about that. So we're going to discuss that and take a bit of a deep dive into that so that you know. And here we go. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Chris. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm great. Thank you so much. And thanks for being here. I know you're super busy with everybody contacting you and trying to get their property things all set up. So it's great that you can be here.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about the Codice Fiscale situation. Mid last week, I got a frantic email from people who had called San Francisco consulate and said they were told that nothing's going to happen until after COVID is over, whenever that might be. And I thought, okay, that's horrible because we can't sell them properties with that. Other people have gone through Philadelphia. I don't know if people from all over the US can go through Philadelphia or Chicago or whatever, but let's have your take on that. What have you got set up on the whole Codice Fiscale thing?
Yeah, so obviously, like Codice Fiscale is, as probably most of your viewers know, is the Italian tax number. It's comparable to the Social Security number in the US. And when you are not an Italian resident and you have not visited Italy in the past 3 months, the only way for somebody living outside of Italy to get an Italian Codice Fiscale is to go through the consulate. And the consulate is competent for the area where you live. So somebody, let's say from San Francisco, cannot apply for the Codice Fiscale through the Italian consulate in New York or Philadelphia.
Okay.
It's just each consulate is extremely jealous, let's say, of their district, and they will not accept to deal with people who come or live from outside of the district unless it is an absolute emergency, like you are visiting that area, they rob you and you need assistance and you are an Italian citizen. But if you are not an Italian citizen, there is no way they will take you in unless it is really something extraordinary. So if the consulate is too busy to take you in for Italian tax number, Italian Codice Fiscale, how do you resolve it? So it depends really. The answer depends on what do you need the Codice Fiscale for. If it is just because you want to get it for the future, because you might need it in the future, it might be hard because there would be no way really to put any pressure on the consulate. If it is because you, let's say, want to buy a property, you want to put a purchase offer in, or you want to open a bank account or things like that, so you have a concrete reason to apply for the Codice Fiscale, then if the Italian consulate will not listen to you, what you can do, you can appoint somebody in Italy with a specific proxy or even more a power of attorney to apply on your behalf.
Okay.
So, and this is not something very common. So since we deal with so many cases of property purchase or inheritance, opening bank accounts, we have been able to sit down with the representatives of the local tax office and came up with a sort of an understanding, let's say, where if we can justify that there is sufficient ground or motive for a person to wanting the Codice Fiscale, they will accept our letter of reference, let's say, and they will issue in Italy the Italian Codice Fiscale, even if that person is not a European citizen, does not live in Italy, and hasn't visited Italy in the past 3 months.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, good. How long does that take? I mean, it used to be you go to Italy, you're there for an afternoon or for a few hours and you get your Codice Fiscale and you're done. Is that kind of how your line is set up?
So I wish it was like that. Because since they have shrinked the occupancy of any public offices, they have cut down the staff to a very bare minimum. So they will only accept people in if you have an appointment. So now the lines are outside of the tax office, first of all. And since there are lines and they let less representatives inside, there are less people who can be served per day. So they will only let you go there if you have an appointment that you have to pre-schedule online. So that's already pretty frustrating, because you might go there and then learn that you have to book an appointment, and the first appointment is in 2 days. So it used to be, like you said, people used to go to Italy, and while they were visiting there, they would go through the experience of, a little bit of a long wait, a couple of hours, but then they will walk out with a tax number.
Yeah.
Now you will not be able to do that. And if you are in a tight schedule, you might miss that opportunity altogether because of the booking timeline.
Yeah.
So when we do the service, obviously we are organized and we have several tiers. We have the standard timeline, or we have the urgent time, or we have the express timing. So it really depends on the circumstances. Obviously, if we can group together more applications altogether, we are able to provide a service for a reduced fee. Whereas if the service, if you call us or contact us, you want the Codice Fiscale today or tomorrow, then we have to have a person go there, do the line, make the line for you, and wait in line for you only. And so that will cost more to us than to you too.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So that's good that you can kind of group them and take them all in at one time, right?
Yes, definitely. And we actually have a very streamlined process. So considering really the time and effort that we put to process one of them, when we can put many together, so we kind of spread the effort and the cost on all the clients. So that way, really, it turns out to be a very reasonable fee if you are not in a hurry, obviously.
Yeah.
And so within 5 to 6 days, that the average is 5-6 days, you can get it. When you go through the consulate, if you get a consulate that is pretty responsive, you usually can expect it within a couple of weeks. If you are not lucky, it might take 3 to 4 weeks. And if you're very lucky, it might take under a week, but it is very rare.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. There are a couple of consulates that are doing well. Like I said, Philadelphia is one. I thought Chicago was another one. LA's, we're still waiting to hear on that one, but it's great that we have you as backup, because there are people that are buying property sight unseen. They're just like, here, get me this property. I'm like, okay, let's get you going.
Yes.
So that's wonderful.
Yes.
And I know you're working with one of our ladies right now.
Yeah.
So they do need a passport for that, right? They have to give you a passport or send you something about the passport, like a picture of it or something.
Yes, it is essential to have a valid passport to apply for the Italian tax number. In very, very rare cases, we have been able to get a tax number without the passport. For example, if somebody had inherited the property and they just had no reason to travel, so they just needed to inherit the property, so they needed a Italian tax number, but they didn't have an international form of ID. So we were able to work out an exception with the representatives, but it's just very painful and time consuming. So definitely passport, and also a proof of address. So wherever is your address, yes, in the US, because that will be the address that will go on record in the Italian tax office database as your home address, wherever you live in the US. And so that is all you need. And if we have a couple of minutes, I wanted to touch base on one very important aspect. You said passport. So obviously the tax number, it is very important that it reflects, the Codice Fiscale reflects the last name on your passport, yes. Which sometimes for women is not that obvious, because as you might know, in the US, married women very often take their husband's last name.
Yes.
However, listen to this. And on the form for the application for the tax code, for the Codice Fiscale, it says expressly that you have to enter your maiden name.
Right.
So The reason for that, though, that is not meant for foreigners. That is meant for Italians, because in Italy, women don't take their husband's last name. However, in society, women are addressed by their husband's last name. So it's Mr. and Mrs.
Okay.
Right? So, my wife in Italy, if we were living in Italy, my wife would be called Mrs. Metta, even if in Italy, she will not have on her driver's license, on her passport, my last name. So that's just a cultural thing. You don't change your name, but you are addressed in society with your husband's last name. So to be sure, on the official forms, they say you have to put down your maiden name because that's your official legal name.
Yeah.
Where in the US, many people read that and put down their maiden name because they follow the instructions that they read on that piece of paperwork.
Yeah.
So when you go buy a property, that might create incredible difficulties, and it might cause closing delays, if not even cancellations and postponements of months.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you address that? You just ignore the instructions, although it may sound odd. You just have to make sure that your last name reflects your last name on the passport.
Okay.
And Chris, you know that the Codice Fiscale is actually a formula. It's the result of a formula. So the first 6 letters are a combination, are pulled from your last name, the first 3, and your first name, the second 3 letters.
Okay.
So if you go down with your maiden name, those first 3 letters will be different than the ones they should be. Yeah. So when you go to closing and they start entering your information in the closing database at the notary office, at a certain point they will be stopped and they will not be able to go ahead. And the notary will challenge that your tax number, your Codice Fiscale, is not consistent. Yeah. And that will create a lot of confusion, trouble. And then if they push it through, it just becomes a nightmare. So the rule is just go with your name as per your passport.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I lost a whole load of furniture that took me forever to find because of that exact reason. It was in the other world. That's fantastic. Yeah, we've had to do the apostille thing and the marriage certificate. Just to avoid that by doing what you said. That's fantastic. Thank you for that. That's going to save our.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And if I wanted to tell to people who already went through down that route and are perhaps thinking, oh man, I got this now, how do I address it? There is a system. There's something that very few people know. As you know, I like to share with you things that we don't even have on our website. It's really totally like, our little secrets. I am only sharing them with you, Chris.
We love
So if you got a Codice Fiscale with the wrong name, with your maiden name, but on your passport you have your married name, how do you reconcile that? Well, you can go to the tax office or send somebody on your behalf and give evidence of your actual valid name and ask for a dual Codice Fiscale. It's a certificate that will show the 2 Codice Fiscale formulas, and so you can use either of them regardless. So whenever you would use one or the other, the tax authorities will know that they refer to the same individual. And there is a specific procedure to do that. And sometimes most representatives will not even know what you're talking about if you go there. But if you push enough, you can be successful.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah. So for those of our guys, I'm not sure who knew that and who didn't. So some of our guys might have gotten them under their maiden names, but they can do a marriage certificate and an apostille or something if they have a purchase, or maybe just buy everything in their husband's name, something like that.
Yeah, there are several ways to resolve it. One way is to show proof of marriage, and so basically to provide those links that are between your maiden name and your married name. Right. And so birth certificate, marriage certificate, passport, And all of that will give evidence to the notary that you are who you, the name on your passport is belongs to the same person as the name on the birth certificate. So some notaries will address that by mentioning your name in the agreement of sale with maiden name and married name. So also known as, or previously known as, or married as, and so forth. That's another way to address it.
Okay.
However, my recommendation, because don't only work on property purchases, but also we work on the sales and we work on the transfers by inheritance. The more consistent you are with valid name on passport reflected properly on the Codice Fiscale alphanumeric code, the better. The more streamlined every next step will be. Because yes, the notary can help you go through closing and that's done. And then you push down the can down the road. But at the end of the day, if you have your name not consistent with your tax number, sooner or later you might have some issues. So my recommendation for if you have not closed yet and you have the wrong Codice Fiscale, just put that little extra effort now to have it consistent, because that will set you up for success later.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the Codice Fiscale, not only for property purchases and properties, but buying furniture, buying a car,
everything,
just about everything you need the Codice.
Everything, even to turn on an electric utility, to buy a little phone card, and nowadays they ask you for your tax number, for your Codice Fiscale, even just to issue an invoice. They have to include your, it's not as secretive as it is the Social Security number in the US. Yeah. Everyone will know your Codice Fiscale. It is almost public information. It is pretty much everywhere. On any invoices anyone issues for you, on all utility bills, your paperwork. If I look you up on the national database just with your first and last name, I will get your property record and it will have your Codice Fiscale on it. Right. So, and anyone can check that type of information because it's 100% public.
Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. Fantastic. Okay. Well, it seems like we kind of have that whole Codice Fiscale nightmare that kept me up all week last week handled. So that's, thank you for doing that.
May I add just one thing that I get this question a lot, and I'm sure that some of your viewers are wondering this right now. What if I get a Codice Fiscale but then don't buy a house? Will I be tax liable in Italy? Will that kick in any tax red flag with the Italian tax code? I don't want to have anything to do with Italian taxes. How do the two things work together? They don't really. Having an Italian tax number basically identifies you in Italy with a number that you can use for a number of things, but per se, it will not imply any tax obligations whatsoever. However, at a time when you will have to put in place any formal document or process in Italy, you will be a step ahead.
Okay, that makes sense. Great. Fantastic. Well, thank you for all that information. That was such a relief when I talked to you on that last week, because it was really starting to come up. So I'm sure you're going to be getting some people contacting you. I know you've got a couple already that you're working with because you're buying, and we're going to be over there in the next 2 weeks, and people want to take advantage of the remote property purchase program that we have, which is fantastic. So yeah, that's great.